Oh, I never thought of that. That's right. Yeah, no. Sorry, I thought it was. My fault. Let me show you something real cool.
The Force is with you, young Skywalker. You are not a Jedi yet. Red 9, standing by.
Red 2, standing by. Contact crossfire, boys.
Okay.
Okay, so you've seen the movies like Minority Report and Iron Man where they use their computer in the space around them. But how would you actually use that in your house or office today using existing technology? These movie interfaces are really great because they make something seem more powerful or intelligent for storytelling in the film besides being nice eye candy. But if you're going to use one in real life, you probably don't want lots of little animated text and graphs. What you would want is something clear and easy to use. So I did a manifesto video before about VR, UI, UX, RMD. The gist was that we're humans and we can use our instincts to our advantage when we're making this new thing. This new thing being some kind of operating system environment with multiple applications, but around you instead of 2D like your computer or smartphone or kiosks. This video is a summary of some of those more useful workflows I've found in the last few months, partly for the uni, but also for the VR community. So I'm using this mouse to scroll through my presentation, and the numbers you see sometimes in the corner are citation references, and I'll try to keep it under 20 minutes. Of course, real life like this is a 3D interface, and we can look at information design in the real world or our interactions there. But to do this kind of full digital interface, we'll use a head-mounted display. So if you're even watching something like this, you probably already know that it's like headphones for your eyes. Headphones replace your hearing, this replaces your sight. So you look around and you see this new presented environment with scale and depth and size of things. But first of all, why is this even worth doing? Well, for one, more screen space makes computer workers more productive. You have fewer interruptions to tasks because less time and cognition is spent navigating occluded things in the interface. 360 degrees around you is kind of an endgame for that. There's also Z-depth. Stereoscopic images and parallax from head tracking give you the illusion of depth, which is one of the ways that you naturally understand the world and spatial relationships. Letting users spatially organize tasks also means more productivity. And then on top of that, if a user can customize their working environment, they're going to be happier working in it. So you have happier workers who are significantly more productive if it's done right. And we all talk about the idea of this killer app for VR. And we reference things like Doom. But around that time, probably the killer app was something like Windows or word processors as far as money. So since we've been using computers for a few decades, let's look at some of the things we want to do. We have content like pictures, video, text, and 3D models. We have applications to create and consume that content. We organize that content into groups, and we use metadata to search for it quickly. And then we have symbols and icons that represent actions and applications that cause actions. The little pictures help us find and recall them quickly by their shapes and color. They've always got text descriptions or a text name though, and a lot of these actions we just put into menus as text. We use feedback like cursors, hovering, and audio to help us understand how our input is affecting stuff. And with a keyboard, we tend to switch tools and modify our actions on the fly. So with VR, we still want to have stuff, create stuff, organize stuff, do stuff to our stuff, and look at other people's stuff. But how does that all look? How do we keep it understandable? What is our graphical user interface? Well, here's something interesting. VR was actually invented before the first GUI. While you're probably familiar with those 2D UI things I just talked about, you might not know about some of the first VR things that already exist. There's the laser pointer kind of cursor where you can use it to select stuff or move it around, bring it closer or farther, rotate it. But you probably know how using a laser pointer or a Wiimote or something can get kind of like shaky. So sometimes I'll make it get wider as it goes further out. Another way is like looking through a crosshair to select stuff, kind of like aiming a gun. You can do this intersecting lens kind of idea to see inside stuff. There's the world in miniature concept where you have a map of the environment you're in, and you can affect the world around you using that. You can also move yourself that way. Speaking of which, there's teleportation where you can jump from one place to the next. You can do the cursor thing for menus in space, or radial menus extruding from the hands, or going around the hands, or associated with body parts, or any of the menus you've seen in video games. You can also switch tools or modify cursor actions with buttons or gestures. So now to start making some of these useful, we've got to think where they're going to go. So if I'm at work 8 hours a day, I'm going to be lazy and sit. I'm also not going to be raising my arms a bunch because, hey, lazy, I'm lazy, you're lazy. We're all on this inevitable path to the WALL-E universe anyway, right? So For the last few months, I've been working with an Oculus Rift DK2, and then I've got a Leap Motion attached to the front of it there. Different types of devices and inputs will change this stuff a lot, but I'll explain my content zones concept for these specifically because it's what I've had access to. So, if you're sitting in a chair and wearing this thing, you've got a field of view of about 94 degrees, and it's pretty much circular because the lenses are circular. I'm going to pull some numbers from a great presentation Alex Chu did from Samsung. You can rotate your head to the side comfortably 30 degrees and max 55. You've also got an up and down comfortable and max. If you combine that with the field of view, you have angles where people can see stuff and where they have to strain. Of course, this is for a non-rotating chair. If you're in an office chair that's spinning around, it's different, but let's just assume the most restriction, like the wire will tangle them up, or maybe it needs to be useful for an airplane seat. So they're just in a stationary chair with armrests. Samsung also had some useful numbers on depth. If something's past 20 meters, you don't really see that much stereo separation, which is your depth perception. So beyond that, you'd lose that benefit. And then super close at about a ½ meter, things start to get straining or cross-eyed, like you don't really want to be looking at them for a long time. So no permanent interface stuff there. Now you've got this zone where you can see stuff comfortably and meaningfully. Office ergonomics say that if you're going to be reading stuff on a screen all day, it should probably be between 15 and 50 degrees downward and outside that strain zone. Now there's something called vergence accommodation conflict, where your eyes try to focus on something based on its distance. Everything is focused at the same distance of 1.3 meters in the DK2 though. Later there will be fixes for this, like planoptic light fields and tensor displays, but we're assuming the DK2 for this. That means if we're showing someone text for a long time, then it should probably default to those angles at 1.3 meters away so that it's most comfortable. So now we have some good zones for laying out our content. There's this no-no zone right around the head where nothing should be permanently, the main content zone, the peripheral zone where they can still see stuff, but you probably don't want them to be straining for necessary stuff. And then back behind, I would say, is the curiosity zone, where they've got to literally turn their body to see. And then outside of all this, you get to a point where the two views pretty much are rendering the same thing pixel for pixel. It's basically monoscopic and should probably just be part of the skybox at that distance. This gets further and further out with devices as they get higher and higher resolutions. And then within that content zone is the main work area, especially at that comfortable distance. So if you're going to be using this Leap Motion,